world. And I'd like to ask you to start with, to prove that I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death, a very simple question. We have the question, Manish. The question is, what makes great learning resources? And what I'd like you to do is just type your answer in the question box. So use the question box, not to ask questions, but just to tell me what you think makes great learning resources. Some of you are talking about engagement. Some of you are talking about interactivity. Some of you are talking about motivation. Some of you are talking about personalization. All of these things are correct. All of these things are part of what makes good learning resources. But what I want to do is put a little proposition to you, if I may. If we can have the next slide, Manish. And my proposition is incredibly simple, and that is that what got you to this point, all the things we know about instructional design and how you develop materials, what got you to this point won't necessarily get you to where you need to be over the next months or years. Now, we're kind of almost like the Pony Express. Now, the Pony Express was absolutely brilliant at getting information across the US on horseback. They had the fastest horses, the strongest horses, the best changing stations, the thinnest and lightest riders. And they could get from the middle of the US to California in 10 days. It was amazing. But to improve on the Pony Express didn't mean you got bigger horses, smaller riders. You had to rethink everything. And I think we're kind of at a point now where we're rethinking instructional design, we're rethinking the roles of materials. And that's really what I want to talk to you about. So my second point, the next slide, Manish, the second point is taken from some comments by Alison Rosette, who's a very well-known professor of instructional design. And what Alison is saying is, we can go back to that last slide. Oh, back, that's it. If we could, what Alison is saying is that if you have great materials, you need less support. If you have great support, you need to spend less time on the materials. So there's a kind of sliding scale between support and materials. And this is from an instructional designer. So she's saying pragmatism is really important. And there is no necessary conflict between speed, quality, and price. You know, we used to say you can have 2 of the 3. Well, I actually think you can have 3 of the 3 now. But it means that you create the right balance between the materials and the support that you give. Next slide. So it's kind of like this metaphor on the screen. This is a lovely picture, which I use a lot for all sorts of reasons. But the point I want to make is, and this is my 3rd out of 10, that we should make a bigger focus on the impact that we make rather than focus exclusively on making that drop perfect. In other words, making the materials absolutely perfect. Sometimes we can use imperfect materials in a particular context with a particular kind of support. And what that can do is actually drive bigger impact. Because at the end of the day, impact is what counts. And increasingly, impact is what people pay for. Not that the materials are perfect, but that the impact of the whole learning should be focused upon. So, can anyone build great learning resources? And the answer is yes and no. The idea that you can just say, hey, we'll crowdsource all the resources, you end up like this, utter boredom for the user. The key thing is that everyone can contribute, but there's a professional aspect to making the final choices and the final balance. Someone needs the expertise to work out the learning system, but that doesn't mean they have to be in total control of everything. So yes, lots of people can contribute. No, you can't simply devolve the whole system, the whole process out there. Otherwise you end up with what you got on the screen. So my next point is the fourth one. I think increasingly, if we can go to the next slide, Manish, increasingly, and then the next slide as well, increasingly, we're no longer stopping at knowledge. Learning is not about transmitting knowledge. It's not even about transmitting and testing competency. Increasingly, it's about behavior. To deliver behavior is a complex process that requires a complex interrelationship between the nature of the learning program, the nature of the materials within this, the nature of the support, what comes after, what comes during, the kind of putting into practice of the learning and the opportunities for that. But the bottom line is that we have to change people's behavior, not simply tell them stuff that they need to know. And that requires not just a thought about different materials. For example, building in scenarios into your learning can give people a chance to test out what they know in a virtual, real world. It's not just about that. It's about permanent changes in behavior. And that's quite a tall order. It's quite a challenge, but it's in some ways it's the only game in town. So, can we have the next slide, Manish? There is a danger which I am guilty of as much as anyone else, of really seeing myself as the kind of central light of learning in an organization, which is fine, but not in daylight. You know, a light bulb in daylight is very ineffective. The real light is when you can connect lots of different process. And that is a rethink. This is moving from Pony Express to electric telegraph, because the only way you could make the Pony Express better was by completely reconceptualizing everything. So, I've spoken for about 10 minutes. Is there anything, Manish, the next slide, is there anything that I've obviously missed that you think I should have included? And then we'll move on. We've done the 5th challenge, so we're halfway through. I'll move on to the 6th challenge. I think if we talk a little bit about this picture, to me that picture exemplifies trust. And the trust is between the providers and the learners. I think we should trust learners more, and therefore we don't force them down paths. We don't force them to jump through hoops. We don't force them to tick boxes. Because if they really care, they will learn. If you provide the opportunity and they need that opportunity, they will learn. There's no doubt about that. If you constrain them, if you force them to all do the same thing, you create inefficient and ineffective learning. I remember one of my big fights in the BBC with the subject matter experts. They wanted everyone to go through everything in a set pattern. I wanted people to be given the choice. And we fought long and hard over that. So it's a sensitive and important issue because this was about really key information. It was about, you know, editorial policy. The content was very, very important. But I still thought that to treat our learners like adults and let them dip into those areas that they wanted to first and complete in whatever order they wanted would be more productive and more effective than forcing them linearly through 10 blocks. So I suppose if you look at my next slide, my seventh point is that as organizers of learning, as instructional designers, we should be doing less shaping, telling people what to do, and more framing, creating an environment where they can work it out, they can explore, they can go off the controlled learning materials and into readings, websites, talk to people, get advice, map your own journey, but come up with the right kind of conclusions. So it's really the end that's important. The means to an end needs to be controlled, i.e. framed, but not necessarily dictated, i.e. shaped. So if we look at the next slide, this is John Kotter, the leadership guy from Harvard. John Kotter's view is that if we're going to live in this world of constant change, we need new skills, new competencies in our leaders. And so he's put 5 there. The first one is risk-taking. The second one is humble self-reflection. The third one is solicitation of opinions, aggressive collection of ideas and opinions. The fourth one is careful listening. And the fifth one is openness to new ideas. And in a way, they seem to be 4 absolutely critical areas that learning has to take on board. A bit of humble self-reflection about what succeeds and what fails. A real focus on what the learner likes, enjoys, demands, wants to accommodate, and careful experimentation, new ideas, trying new things, always being discontented with what is existing in the present. So the next slide. And there's also a new skill, really, around pattern recognition. My 8th point. We don't have now to make everything complete and neat because the world and the world of work is not complete and neat. Part of our role is to make sense of an incomplete picture. And we can do that in learning. We don't have to give the complete finished product. Sometimes we can challenge people and give them an incomplete product that they can then begin to fit together. And they can make sense in their own way. And in some sense, that process of forcing people to engage and fill in the missing bits and fill in the gaps is a process that they will be increasingly familiar with outside learning and which will help them as part of the skills they need in their day-to-day life, day-to-day activity, day-to-day operation. So my 9th point, we can have the next slide, Anish. My 9th slide is that if we're involved in learning, we should be tracking the big trends out there and leveraging the big trends. These are McKinsey's 10 IT trends for the new millennium. And they've revised this report, they've revised it a couple of times, but essentially the trends continue. And I've highlighted a few of those trends that we can make use of directly. Distributed co-creation. If that is the way big pharma companies now do their research and development, why can't we start to leverage across the whole organization and create jointly but still have our responsibility for making the final decision about what goes out, just in the way that a big pharma might get co-creation for their R&D, but they decide what they actually invest their money in at the end of the day. What about innovating from the bottom of the pyramid? What about trying to get ideas from users about where they want to go with learning? Why not try to develop ideas that emerge not from the learning department, but from elsewhere in the organization? What about collaborating at scale? Across organizations, across industries perhaps, if there are common needs, common areas to develop. There's no reason why we can't share on a massive scale. And making the network, the organization, increased use of networking, bring your own device, multiple sources of information, giving people clutches of resources rather than finished products and letting them work their way through those resources and helping them draw conclusions, make sense, and move forward. There are huge changes going on just in this area of IT. And I think it's crazy that as organizations evolve, we don't evolve alongside them. Next slide, Manish. And my last of the 10 trends is the distribution model. We're about creating networks that join learners, join expertise, connect learners to knowledge and skills and to experts and to practice and to help modifying behavior. We're about increasingly not single effort one-on-one, but building communities of learners who can essentially help each other and perhaps help themselves in helping each other. So this distributed model is where organizations are going. This is the shape of the future in terms of organizations. It should be the shape of how we deliver, how we build, how we organize learning. Increasingly distributed, increasingly networked, increasingly in vivid contact across the organization and not isolated. So there are my 10 challenges. What I'm going to do now is just sum up the points that I've made by just showing you a few other little items that I hope will be of interest. The first is just to pay attention to and nod my respect to Daniel Kahneman's great book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And what Kahneman says is that we all have two models of mind. The next slide shows you the first one. Now, if we go to that slide, is there anyone looking at this slide who doesn't know the emotion that that woman is feeling? And how long did it take us to work it out? Fraction of a second? Tenth of a second. There's part of us which is driven by instinct, gut reaction, built on experience, built on our understanding of the culture of our organization, where we react. We just click our fingers, we react, we think, we survive fast. This is the kind of lazy brain, if you like. This is the instant emotional reaction to things. But there's another model of mind that Kahneman talks about. If we look at the next slide, and we get to that by asking a very, very simple question. What's the answer? Immediately you look at that, your brain goes into a different gear. Your slow, rational brain. You have to think of a process. You have to work out how you would do it. You go 27 times 10 minus 27. That's probably the best way to do it. So 27 by 270, by 30 is 240. Oh, maybe it's 243 is the answer. Your brain goes into a different gear, a rational, reflective gear. And sometimes we have this notion that our learning is all about engaging the emotions, getting people motivated and interested. It is, but it's also to challenge people, to help them think, to help them be able to look at their own assumptions and look at them again. Because sometimes that initial gut reaction is wrong, quite simply wrong. And we need to apply a different mental model to get at what we need to get at and to get where we need to get. So that reflection, concentration, analysis, all of those processes are equally a part of the learning, the challenge of the learning, if you like. Challenging assumptions as the emotional, that I get it, this is fun, that side of it. We've got to keep those two models of mind in play because they're both very, very important and they're both important to our survival. Go to the next slide. It's rather like dartboard. Now, you have three throws of the darts, and you get your score. And sometimes you do really well, and sometimes you don't, but you move on. And it's a bit like that with learning. You get 3 goes, and you should create the opportunities to go on to the next move. If that didn't work, give them another move. If that didn't work, give them another move. And they'll finally get through the game. Don't put everything on the 3 darts. And that means don't focus all your energies on perfect materials, or perfect support, or perfect communities. Focus on all of them. And that will help you create a game where some people will get it first time, some second time, some one way, some another way. Create flexible opportunities as far as you possibly can. On the next slide. And I suppose what that really means is we're kind of building learning in bits. This is the new pavilion in the Serpentine Gallery in London. And it looks like it could fall apart. It looks so insubstantial. It's made of those, look like matchsticks. They're actually metal sticks. But if you go to the next slide, Manish, what you'll see is that it's actually incredibly strong. You can walk on it. It's got a roof. You can sit in it. You can drink tea in it. There's a tea bar in the middle of it. And in some ways, that's what we're doing now. We're not building nice, solid pavilions with thick walls and big, obvious roofs. We're building these new kinds of structures, which are slightly fragmented, slightly awkward, but they're really strong, and they really work for a lot of people in lots of different circumstances. So they're fit for more than one purpose. The solid walls and ceiling create something that's fit for one purpose. So I think this pavilion, in a curious kind of way, fits what I'm trying to say about the way learning is changing and the challenges that we face. So we look at the next slide. Jeff Bezos from Amazon. Jeff gave his 10 laws of business. They're well known. He trots them out quite often. And I'm not going to go through all 10, but there are 2 or 3 which I think are really interesting. The first one is be stubborn, be flexible. That's such a clever skill to learn. When do you dig your heels in and say no, and when do you say, yep, we could accommodate that. Yes, we can do it faster. Yes, we can do it in this way. And when do you say no if you want it to work? I think learning the skill of when to be stubborn and when to be flexible is a key core element of the new world, and particularly the new world in learning. Never stop experimenting. Never stop inventing. Never be content with what you've got at the moment. Can always do it better, and sometimes doing it better means, like Pony Express, rethinking the whole thing, not just getting a faster horse. Obsess about your learners, about your customers. Really be aware of what they think and care about what they think and care about what works for them. And then the 10th law, which is my absolute favorite, get started now. Don't put it off, don't plan it. Don't postpone it, get going. Because if you don't start, you'll never do anything. So my next slide, I'm just finishing now, very quickly. Drucker defined innovation as change which creates a new dimension of performance. In some ways, you could say that's learning. Learning is change which creates a new dimension of performance. And I want you to focus on is the new dimension of performance. You are not about minimal compliance. You're about new dimensions of performance, and I think that keep that in your head if you can, as we go forward. And if you look at my last slide, before I hand over to Santanu, my last slide is this great sculpture, and in some ways you're doing that. We're building something solid on something that doesn't look very solid, and it can work, as this thing proves. You don't have to have a solid foundation. So maybe there are no solid foundations anymore to build something that's great and resilient and does the job, not for now, but for the future. They're the crucial things. Now, Santanu is going to take over, and he's going to talk about some of the really great tools that Raptivity have got to make learning materials better, fun, more interactive, more interesting. Santanu.
Thank you, Nigel. That was some very good and amazing information and a lot to think about. I'm sure our audience is having an amazing time right now. Now what I'll do next is I'll showcase the tool that Nigel talked about, that is Raptivity, and show you how the objectives that Nigel mentioned, Raptivity can help you achieve those. So now my next slide is, what is Raptivity? So Raptivity is an innovative do-it-yourself tool. It is a library of templates that you are going to populate with your content, which can be a text or a media. When you have to publish this content, you have an option to publish it as a Flash or an HTML file. And there are very simple 3 steps that you need to follow. That is the select, customize, and then publish or interactivity. So I'll move on to the first step. Now, selecting an interaction model. Now, Raptivity has a very vast library of interaction models, or templates as we call them, across various categories. Now, these categories vary from simulations, presentation aids, virtual world, and so on. So every template template acts as an independent interaction. So you can make a selection of the suitable interaction model through an easy selection process. Also, as Nigel mentioned about the role of instructional design, the Raptivity templates are mapped to the learning theories. So now next step would be the customization. Once you have selected the interaction model that will fulfill your requirement, then all you have to do is to pull in your content, which can be text, images, audio, or video. You can populate the template with your media assets through a simple form filling exercise. So, and for doing this customization, you require no programming knowledge at all. So it is quite a simple tool to use, and we'll soon be seeing that during the backend customization. Once you have customized a template and you're ready to move ahead, you would like to save and use this particular template. So now you have to publish this template. Now you have to publish this template into an output that you can embed into your e-learning platform that you currently have. So you have an option to publish it as a Flash or HTML file output. All these interactions that will be created using Raptivity are trackable. They are SCORM, AICC, and ThinKind trackable. So you can embed this content onto your existing authoring tools, onto your LMSs, or onto your PowerPoints. So if you're a person who is moving ahead with M-Learning, if you want to transfer your content to your mobile devices, then HTML5 would be the best thing to go ahead. So now you can see that there is a flexibility of publishing these templates. So moving ahead, these are some of the key features of Raptivity. So now we have a multi-language support wherein you can, if you're catering to an audience which is non-English speaking, so we have arrangement for right to left alignment if the language is Arabic, or we have multi-language. So it is basically a Unicode compliant software. We have a media toolbox. Now what Raptivity can do is you can add some extra media to your existing templates. So this media can be in the form of text, video, audio, or even in button. Now hyperlinking is something that you would be looking for if you want to direct your audience to a particular knowledge resource, or to a particular website. So you can hyperlink the text that is embedded within Raptivity, or you can hyperlink a button as well. Now Raptivity supports various video formats such as FLV, F4V, OGV, MP4. So these videos can be embedded into the interactions that are there in Raptivity. Compatibility with the other tools is something that I would like to talk about. Now Raptivity can be easily integrated in all the leading authoring tools, LMSs that are available in the market. Interactions support AS3, so there is a smoother integration with all the leading authoring tools in the market. So again, the interactions support i9 versions. As I said before, these can be tracked, so there's the ThinKind compliance 0.95. So now I'd go ahead with the licensing and support. Raptivity provides annual as well as perpetual licensing options. So again, you have a choice to make between the standard and the premium support, which is provided depending upon the need of the user. So there's flexibility in the choice you're making. So if you're going for a perpetual license, then it will be a software that will stay on your system for lifelong. So moving ahead, I'll just take you through some of the benefits that Raptivity has to offer. So one is the wise investment option. Using Raptivity, you can minimize your cost and time for the content that you're going to develop. So it is a one-time investment option. So it is a smart interactivity building tool. It gives you a convenient way and an easy approach for all your training and e-learning requirements without any programming hassles, of course. You can engage your learners wherever they are. So there is a flexibility in the way you are going to present or publish your content for your learners. So you can, if your learners are currently going on by using mobile devices for the e-learning purposes, then the HTML5 format can be used for Apple devices. So there is a diversity in the way you're going to present your content. So now I'll take you through some of the samples that are created using Raptivity. Now this is the character dialogue sample, and I have muted the audio for this particular presentation. But you can see that there are characters on the screen who are having a dialogue. So there's a call out that you can see. So you can bring your training and courses come alive with this character dialogue interactivity. Now this particular interactivity belongs to the presentation aids category. This model can help you, it can give you a professional looking animated character dialogues. So you can add in your own voiceover to these particular characters just to add in that simple human touch, along with customizing the background as per your use. So this can be a great interaction model to introduce or summarize a particular topic. So moving ahead, now this is a drag and drop sort and sort interaction model. Now this interaction model belongs to the quiz category. In this particular interaction model, there are some buckets, or there are some vacant spaces wherein you have to move this particular item. So now the topic is the first aid kit. Now I have to identify which image or the images which will belong to the first aid kit. So I'll just try to drag in some images. So now at a stage, if I am not able to identify any more images, I'll just give up, and there will be an automated arrangement of the images into the box. So you can use this particular interaction for classification, for sequencing, for labeling, and such sort of e-learning activities. So you can be creative in more than one way. For example, you can arrange the buckets onto a waterfall model to present a topic on a sequencing of events. So there's flexibility that you see there. Now moving ahead, this is a much loved game-based interaction model which belongs to the games category. It is called Spin the Wheel. Now here there are some topics that are arranged onto a board. The learner has to hit the target, he has to hit the arrow, and the arrow will land abruptly on any of the topics. So the learner is not clearly aware, where this particular arrow is going to land. So now he has a question that will pop up. He has some options. He has to select the right answer. So I'll select one of the answers and we'll do a submit. So there's a feedback that is given immediately to the learner. So he gets an understanding if he's moving correctly ahead. So that's an assertive feedback. So it's a correct answer. So I'm sure you must be getting an idea as to how this particular interaction model works. So this particular interaction model, learners can be asked questions on topics, and the needle is going to rotate on the wheel. It will stop somewhere. So you can present your content in a more gamified manner. So moving ahead. Now this is the explorative immersive learning situation. Now this interaction model belongs to the scenario-based learning category. Now this is going to enable you to create some exploratory learning tours for your audience. Now you can arrange hotspots on the screen. As you can see, there are two images, so these are two hotspots. Now for example, in this particular interaction model, you can see that Mark has just graduated from a university. and he has started applying for jobs. So this is his first job interview. So you have to guide Mark, according to some logical conclusions that he is going to make. So he'll move ahead with this particular job, particular interview. Now, interview etiquette is something that he has to look after. So he has to be presentable for this particular interview. So the next thing would be the resume that he has to carry. So again, if I make a wrong choice over here, so now he has to greet the receptionist and let them know that you have come in for the interview. So these are some of the logical steps that Mark has to follow in terms of moving ahead. So this is a real life situation wherein your learners can be engaged. So now moving ahead with the next interaction model called as visual assessment. Now there is an assessment that is created using visual interaction between the audience. So now this interaction belongs again to the quiz category. This can help you to present assessments in different ways using audio, video, images. So it can effectively be a means of customization in multiple scenarios like an open book assessment, simulation-based assessment, and so on. So you can add questions in sequencing manner. So for example, I'll start this particular interaction. So now there's an introduction screen that the learner has to go through. So he can take a look at the screen. So it will be like an open book test. So he can make a choice. He'll move ahead. So now the questions are arranged in different formats. So like it was a simple fill in the blank now. Now again, there are different patterns of questions that are presented. Now this is a match the following question. So questions can be presented to the learner in different formats in this particular interaction. Now when you do a submit, there is an assessment result that you get. So the learner is aware of how he is performing. So again, there's a motivational factor to this learning in this manner. So again, there'll be a score, the percentage, the time taken, and all the feedback is immediately given to the learner. Now moving ahead, I will take you through the Raptivity demonstration, the backend customization of the software. Now this is the Raptivity software that we talked about. Now this is the first screen that you would be seeing once you open the software. This is the welcome screen. So there's an update of what recent is going on regarding Raptivity. So there are Evolve updates. So this is one of the packages of Raptivity called Evolve. The recent updates. Again, the videos, the integration videos that are there, they will be updated on the screen. So again, there's a product search option that is available. So if you want to try how do you integrate Raptivity with Articulate, so you can just type in Articulate. So once you click over here, you'll get all the information that is related to this particular integration. So there is some discussion that is going on a community forum. So there are some videos that you can browse through to get to know more about how do you integrate Raptivity with Articulate. So there's some pretty lot of information that you can browse through. So I'll just start off by customizing an interaction model from some of the examples that we saw. So I'll click on New Interaction. So now this is the interaction selection page where you can see all the interaction models that are arranged. So okay, so we have in my system I have 191 interaction models. So I have a slider wherein you can arrange the interaction models in an easily viewable way. So if you move your mouse over a particular interaction model, for example, branching questions adaptive type, so you'll get to know more about this particular interaction model. Again, it will give you an information as to what are all formats does this interaction model support. So again, there's a preview that is available, so you can take a look at this interaction model before you start customizing it. So again, there are various category-wise searches that you can do. So we have around 9 categories that you can search from. There's a pack-wise search. So again, It's just loading. Yeah, so we have segregated these interaction models across various categories. So you can do a pack-wise search while selecting. So again, if you are accustomed to use any of the learning theories, then you don't have to think twice if I'm selecting the right interaction model, because we have mapped the Bloom's taxonomy or the Gagné's 9 events. We have mapped the interaction models to these learning theories. So again, we have a search option over here. So this is a refined search option wherein you just type a particular category, or you can look out for an interaction model. And I just typed in flashcard, and you can see that I have got two options over here. So these are the two interaction models. So what I'll do is I'll try to customize one of the interaction models. So I just click on it. Now this is the backend panel that you see. This is the customization panel. So now you can see that this is the workable area or the editable area. You can have an option to move right or left. So this is the customization panel. So all you see on the screen on the left-hand side, it can be customized. So for example, I'll start with the basic settings. So now since this interaction model is 508 compliant, so it can cater to audience that is differently enabled. So now you can have a choice as to how do you present your content. So you can have only image, you can have a combination of image and text, text and image, only text. So you have an option to keep the content the way you want. So I'll just move on to the background settings. So now background image is something that you would like to change. So I'll just change the color of the background image. So you can see that the changes are immediately reflected here. So again, you can have a flexibility of browsing an image to your machine as well. So I'll just go in through my asset library. So we have an asset library of some images that we have given. And you can see that the changes are immediately reflected here. The same is with the audio setting. You can select your own audio over here. So again, there's some visual help that is available if you're stuck somewhere. So this, you can just hover your mouse over the question mark, and you can get more information to this particular the customization panel. So now moving ahead with the title, all you can see is that there's a title text over here. So what I'll do is I'll try to change it to flashcards maybe. I'll do all the rich text formatting that is available here. So I'll try to change the color to black. Once I click here, you can see that the color has changed. The changes are immediately reflected. Now there's some instruction box over here that you can see. So if you want to give some instruction to your audience before starting this particular interaction model as to how do you flip the card, or you can flip the card to find an image. So this is just an instruction box. You can change this as well. So all the rich text formatting can be done here. Now moving on to the flashcards, I'll stick to 3 so I get some area to work on. So I'll try to arrange this flashcards on the screen. So you can see that I can move the flashcard wherever I want. So now these are some of the basic settings that you can do. Now I'm selecting the front side image. Okay, so you can browse your particular library of images, and you can search for a particular image that you want. So I'll just pick up some character over here and insert it. Again, we have a media toolbox over here which will enable you to add extra text. You can add an image, or you can add a button over here as well. So again, there's a flexibility to add a video as well. So moving ahead, I guess you must have got an idea as to how easy this customization works. So I'll just move ahead and try to see a preview. So we have an HTML5 preview as well. So this particular interaction model supports HTML5, so you can see the preview inside the software itself. So I'll try to save this interaction model before publishing. So it will be saved as an interactivity file.int, so you can re-edit it if you want in the future. Now once I have saved it, I'll try to publish it. Now you have an option to publish it as a Flash or an HTML5. So if you're going ahead with HTML5, you have some options wherein we have given some dimensions wherein you can select this particular pixel if you have an iPhone 4S, if you have an iPhone 5. So these are the options that you can select for devices that are Apple based. So again, there's a tracking option available. So I'll move ahead and use this interaction as a flashcard. So you have an option again to publish it as a single flashcard, a single flash file, or you can publish it as a multiple file output or a mobile file output. So I'm moving ahead, I'll select the action script 3 and I'll go publish. So you get a message as that this interaction model has been published successfully. Once you say yes, you can see that it has been published. So not a difficult process, the customization part or the how do you create the interactivities. I'm sure you must have got an idea about that. So moving ahead, I would like to just summarize some of the points that Nigel had mentioned regarding Raptivity and the issues that he was trying to address. So Raptivity is a tool which will avoid the conflict between speed and quality of the content that is, so because the tool can be easily mastered. So this is going to, this is a rapid approach for creating your e-learning content. So your development process will be speeded up when you use Raptivity. You can make your content more granular by using various media assets and that are available in every template in the Raptivity library. So again, from the instructional designer's perspective, they can create instructionally sound courses by making use of various learning theories. For example, the character dialogue sample that I showed, so it belongs to the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Raptivity empowers you to create e-learning content that is flexible and can cater to all your e-learning and m-learning needs without any programming hassles. So it can be a great learning resource. So that's it about the Raptivity demo. Moving ahead, I have some announcements that I would like to make. So anyone of the audience, if you're planning to go in to attend the developer meeting, you can find Raptivity RVPs at booth number 324. Now, how do you connect? Now we have given some links over here wherein you can connect with Raptivity. That is the LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest. Moving ahead, this is time for some Q&A sessions. So you can ask us questions. Nigel and I are ready over here. We can take up some questions right now.
Someone asked you, Santanu, what does Raptivity cost? That's a good question.
So we can direct you to a store page. You can find the pricing onto the store page if you can log on to www.raptivity.com and go into the store page. So right now, there are some basic packages that you would have to select once you plan to go in ahead with Raptivity. Essential and Zest are the base packages. So the base package starts with $395 with the regular pricing and $296 if you belong to the education or non-profit or government organization.
That's
Any other questions?
The question. Someone asked me, what was the place? Where is the place? Question mark. Where is the place again, and what is it called? If you're referring to the building that I showed, that's in the Serpentine Gallery in Hyde Park in London. Easy to find, unmistakable when you get there. And then someone else asked me if I'd repeat the 4 key points, but I don't know which 4 key points because I had 10 challenges. So if you can qualify that, it may be that you wanted me to repeat the 4 points by John Cotter, the 4 new skills, if you like: risk-taking, humble self-reflection, solicitation of opinions, careful listening, and openness to new ideas. but they're 5, not 4. But I couldn't think of what else you were referring to, so I apologize. And I'd also like to apologize for the late start. That was entirely due to audio hassle. We were on for half an hour before the start with absolutely no audio problems whatsoever. 1 minute after it was due to start, the audio went down and wouldn't reconnect for some reason. So that's a huge apology. I can see the frustration when people are saying, when is it going to start? And I was asking myself that question a little more earnestly than probably anyone else. So very, very sorry about that. But I hope nevertheless, those who stuck with it found it useful.
Nigel, there's a question that I have for myself. So it's like, does Raptivity work with Windows 7? So yes, Raptivity works seamlessly with Windows 7. You can download the trial version from our website, and you can try installing it on your Windows machine, and you can try using Raptivity. So it works perfectly on Windows 7. So again, there is a question for me which says that does Raptivity's HTML5 output support tracking? So yes, Raptivity's HTML5 is TINCAN, SCORM, and AICP compliant. So SCORM 1.2 and 2004. So if you follow any of these standards, then Raptivity's output is going to track the learner's performance.
It is incredibly flexible activity, and it is. I'm saying this from personal experience. It is very easy to use.
Yes.
To get a basic level where you just accept their templates and so on, it's really straightforward. And it looks good. Even if it's simple and you're not customizing very much, it still looks good, and it still integrates with virtually any program that you're building stuff out there on.
Yes. So I'm sure the audiences must have got an idea as to how it is easy to customize the templates. There's another question. Do you offer discounts to government, NGOs, or non-profit organizations? So yes, we offer up to 25% discount for government, NGOs, or non-profit organizations. So if you want to know more, you can take down this address. It's info@raptivity.com. So you can write to our info, and we can help you out with the pricing. So we are.
Good luck to everyone. Good luck.
Because of the technology that we have, we are moving out of time. So
yes,
I would like to thank everybody for being a part of Raptivity's webinar today. So thank you for your participation, and again your feedbacks and for your questions.
Thank you very much. It was recorded, wasn't it?
Thanks, Nigel, for your time.
Yep.
Yes, this
That's a pleasure.
session is recorded.
Good, so it will be available. Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for a very nice comment, Mary Bracken, if you're still there. Thank you, everybody, and it was good to be able to share these things. These are important issues to share. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. So on behalf of the entire Raptivity team, thanks, and have a great day ahead.